Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. Joining us this evening on News First is the cricketing legend Sayin Botham, who's in Sri Lanka to undertake a walk from Kilinochchi all the way down to Seagam. Sayin, thank you very much for speaking to News First. You're going to stay here in Sri Lanka. Sayin, you're in the game of cricket, you're recognized widely as a man who's changed the face of the game, who's been somewhat of a game changer. What motivated you to do the things that you did back in the 80s?
I don't think it's motivation, it was my job. I'm a professional cricketer and I played, and I was in the right time in the right place. And I think the biggest self-belief, I think, is the most important thing. I don't think I ever didn't back myself in a situation, and sometimes, you know, the tougher it gets, you need a little bit of luck, but if you're prepared to guts it out, you can get rewards. So yeah, it was just the way I played. It's just in my makeup, and that's why I walked over 10,000 miles for various charities. You don't do it for your health. You do it because there's a driving force in there, and since I finished cricket, that driving force is still there, but I need something to do with it. So the walks is a great way. The Laureate Sports for Good Foundation, we've been involved over here since '04, and that's since the tsunami. And all these things, it's just the same when I play. You know, I always wanted to be in the mix. I want to be doing something. I don't want to be sitting around. So that's why we're here.
You're a very driven individual. At the same time, when you were playing cricket, you were amongst a pantheon of cricketing greats. Who would you say was, as a bowler, who would you say your favourite batsman was to bowl to?
Favourite, or the one that I found most challenging?
The one you found most challenging. Because you get cricketing rivalries. Who was your greatest rival as a batsman?
I think the best player I ever bowled to was Viv Richards. There's been other great players around, but Viv Richards is the standout player because he had controlled aggression. Some players, like a Sunil Gavaskar, can knock you around and manoeuvre the ball, but Viv could destroy you. If he got going, it was very hard to control. So Viv. But I think the most motivation an England player has is exactly the same motivation an Australian player has. Both England and Australian players want to be in the test arena playing against the old enemy, and you want to beat them. But the really sweet part is when you can beat them in their own backyard. So I think that's the thing, that was the biggest motivation. Those games, that was the history, the tradition, the rivalry, the banter. It was a tough place to be, a good place to be.
So during your walk, you're going to be joined by some Australian cricketing legends as well. Alan Border and Steve Waugh will be joining you. In a recent article that you wrote, you were saying that first you're going to walk all over Sri Lanka, and then you're going to go to Australia and watch England walk all over Australia in the Ashes. You were also mentioning about how these cricketers are going to be joining you from Australia, and how you were not sure what's going to hurt them most, the walk, or what you're going to have to say about Australia.
Well, I know the walk's going to hurt them.
What is it about what you're going to say to them about Australia that's going to hurt them?
The banter between me and, for instance, Alan Border, who grew up playing Test cricket, has been there for 40 years nearly now, just working it out. Yeah, 40 years close on. So Steve Waugh came on a little bit later than that. But no, that's the whole point. That's the banter. That's the rivalry. That's the... if you're good enough to be in the kitchen at its hottest, you're good enough to have banter with the same people. And that's all it is. It's good humoured. There'll be a lot of rivalry. And I'll tell you one thing, neither of those two guys will want to stop walking. Even if they've got a broken leg, they're not going to let me walk, and they're going to pull the plug. No way, and vice versa. I'll crawl if I have to.
Then also wanted to ask you, now, you predicted in the Ashes 5-0 at home, 5-0 away.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still hold to that prediction given Australia's recent performance in England?
I don't. Well, they were saved twice in England by the rain. Otherwise, it would have been 5-0. We then go down to Australia. I look at the two teams and I think, well, how can Australia beat that England team? The only people that can beat the England team are themselves if they don't perform. If they perform to the level that they're capable of and should have performed at in this series, I expect them to. You're not going to get much weather interference. You're going to get quicker and bouncier pitches, which I think suits the England team. We've got the tall bowlers, the fit tall bowlers. and we've got the top 7 batsmen who like the ball coming on. So yeah, I see no reason. I cannot see Australia winning a Test match.
Why is it that about the current constitution of the Australian team? What is it that's lacking?
Well, Australia made a big mistake, and a very un-Australian mistake, and that is that they suddenly lost 9, 10 players, 11 players in the space of maybe 2.5, 3 years. Well, they don't do that. In the past, I remember when Mark Waugh got pushed out of the side, he could have still played for another 18 months, 2 years, easily, in my opinion. But they say, no, we're not going to leave ourselves exposed. We're 2 or 3 players going out in the middle order. So he went out of the side, and I think it was Damien Martin, I think they brought in at that time, or Greg Blewett maybe. But they brought those guys in because they didn't want to leave themselves exposed. And what happened was you had such great players. Gilchrist, Waugh, Warne, Glenn McGrath, Hayden. I'm just you go through. It was about 10 of them that went, all within that small period. And you know, Lanka, you can't replace these guys overnight. Gillespie, they all went in that very small period.
That they didn't have a good second tier to come forward?
They didn't have a second tier, but they should normally, they would have been cultivating that team and keep it ticking over. The problem is that the players we've just mentioned were all exceptional players. So it takes a very, very brave selector to walk in and say to Adam Gilchrist, look, you've done really well. I know you can play for another 2 years, but I'm afraid you're going to have to go because we want to bring someone in. It isn't going to happen. You're not going to kick Gilchrist out. You're not going to take Warne out. So they had what was their blessing at the time when they had a side that dominated for all those years. The problem is that side grew up together and also disbanded together, and very, very difficult to replace. And that's the problem they've got now, and that's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to bring this team on. They will get better. They will get better over the next 2-3 years, but they're not going to get better in 2 or 3 months.
So you're saying that you don't foresee Australia winning a Test in the next?
I don't see them against England.
Against England.
Yeah.
Against the current English makeup. Moving on, saying Sri Lanka, ever since the '96 World Cup, Sri Lanka has been in 2 World Cup finals, and is slowly gaining a reputation of being chokers. Would you say that that reputation is deserved? Is Sri Lanka like the new South Africa? Are we the new chokers?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if you think back to, I think about the game in Mumbai when Dhoni's innings, what he's capable of doing that was a little bit like what Viv Richards can do. And Dhoni had his day. He put himself up the order and smashed it to all parts. One of the great innings in one-day cricket. You can't legislate for that. I actually thought Sri Lanka had done enough to win the game. Particularly when they got a couple of wickets early on. I thought, here we go. Dhoni came to the crease. I thought, well, if this goes wrong, then Sri Lanka, it's theirs for taking. But it didn't go wrong, and Dhoni had played out of his skin. So, no, I don't think so at all. You've got too many good players for that, and experienced players. Kumar, Mahela, these guys, you know, if you look at the teams, and Xanath when he was playing, Murli, you know, Chamindavas, you know, there's so many good players over the years. No, I think the only thing that scares me a little bit with Sri Lankan cricket, and I think it's something that they might need to address, the amount of one-day cricket they play as opposed to the amount of Test cricket. Your best players come from the Test arena because they are the best players and they can adapt to other forms of the game. You hear about these specialist players who just play T20. The reason they just play T20 is they're not good enough to play Test cricket.
Is that a realistic portrayal of it? Do you think that with the commercialization of the short formats of the game and the short formats becoming more popular, especially the D20, with the IPL, the BPL, the SLPL, the Big Bash League, etc., big money spends, do you think that this is having a detrimental effect on Test?
No, I don't. Look, Test cricket is the flagship. There is a place for T20 cricket, and I think international T20 cricket should only happen once every 4 years and make it special, a World Cup. I think you take it out, the international players have enough to do. If you're going to let these guys go and play in the IPL, or going to play in the Big Bash or wherever, then you don't want to clutter up your own fixture list with more T20 games. Keep it special. There's too much of it now. And in England, certainly, the crowds were down. People can't afford to go to two T20 matches a week and put the 4 kids in the car, drive up the motorway. You can't do it. You can't afford to do it. So I think the balance needs to be addressed and put right. And also the other problem is when you have something like that, look, we're already seeing it now. There's corruption. There's a couple of players that have now gone to jail for spot fixing, etc. Too many games, boredom. It can lead to the wrong things coming out in the game. So I think the IPL's too long. I think you can't expect players to play 80 games or whatever it is, 80 matches out there. It's just too long. You know, it becomes a bit of not the big bash, it becomes a big yawn after a while.
So do you think that there have been various accusations regarding the ICC and how the ICC is unable to control the behemoth that is the BCCI? Do you think that those claims are justified? Is the ICC not in control of this?
I think the ICC should be more proactive, definitely. I think they should come in and this is the rules. This is what everyone plays by.
What would you like to see the ICC do in terms of promoting Test cricket?
Well, they are trying to promote Test cricket. I mean, the success, I think, one of the big successes of back-to-back Ashes that's coming up is it'll draw people back in to Test cricket, and that's what needs to be done. At the end of the day, if you want to watch the game of pure cricket, then Test cricket is the game. T20, how many good games are there? Most games are over in the first 6 overs. As I say, the big yawn, let's move on. So I think there's too much of that. Make it more interesting. In England, we used to have a 3-week hit in the middle of the summer, and everybody got geared up for it. The face painting, they had the water, the big swimming pool spas at the grounds, and all this sort of stuff. And everybody got into it for 3 weeks, done and dusted. Now it drags out over the whole summer, and apart from probably the finals day and local derby games, the gates are down. And whatever the authorities want to say, the gates are down.
You're very vocal on your opinions regarding match fixing and spot fixing, etc. Back in 2011, when the Salman Butt, Ramadan and Mohammad Asif case, when that happened, the deliberate no calls, you actually advocated life ban. You say if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. Since then, we've had the spot fixing scandal in the IPL involving Sri Sant, etc. Do you think that the ICC is not handing out severe enough punishments?
I think it shouldn't go there. The ICC is at the top of the tree. But what about the boards, the individual boards, sorting out their own backyards? You know, if you know it's going on, and everyone knew it was going on, then you sort it out. You cut the cancer out. You be responsible for your players, and then it won't get to the ICC. So what I'm saying is, my way of doing it is, you have a board of control for each country. That board of control, earn your money and do your job. And stop ignoring it and sweeping it under the carpet. If it's there, it's for you to sort out. Don't keep on shoveling the blame to the ICC. You're in charge of whether it's English cricket or Indian cricket or Sri Lankan cricket. You sort your own backyard out. Very simple.
As you said earlier, you were advocating life bans for these three cricketers.
Absolutely.
Pakistani cricketers were involved in the...
If they were Pakistani, English, French, Martians, I don't care where they come from. If they want to play that way, then go and find somewhere else to do it. Because once it starts, and once the bookmakers get their fingers into you, how do you get away? You can't get away. Once you've taken the first brown envelope, or whatever it is, leather jacket, inverted commas, when you've taken that and you've done that, they've got you. They control you. The only way you can stop it is to get rid of those people, and you say, okay, boys, you've seen the contracts, you've read the contracts, And when you sign this contract, if you are involved in any form of match fixing which is proved, end of story. Contract ripped up, go and start building roads or houses. You're not playing cricket.
In the case of Mohamed Amr is now requesting an appeal. He's appealed to for his ban to be shortened, be allowed back to play international cricket. He was a pretty young chap when the actual incident occurred, and
so you
the
can't read?
investigation revealed that Salman Butt was sort of goaded the younger guys a bit. Do you think that should factor into?
You can read the contract. He's got the contract there. He read it, he signed it. Very simple. So I don't care if he's 12, 15, 20, 30. Once he's old enough to take responsibility, and certainly he was old enough to take responsibility, he was old enough to play for his country, and he was old enough to be a contracted player for his country. He read that contract. You want to go the other way? Fine. Adios. See ya. Over the hill and far away.
Say you had a footballing career as well. You were played in the football league a few times. As we move into the future, we can see technology playing a greater part in sport. Now, for example, in the Euro, they've adopted the goal line technology in Europe.
Eventually.
In cricket, we've got the DRS. Do you think it's a good thing, the DRS coming in cricket, goal line technology, which will probably be used by FIFA in the World Cup to come? Do you think the technology coming into sport to replace
tennis,
decisions that tennis, etc., do you think it's a good thing?
I think most players think it's a very good thing, and I think most umpires think it's a very good thing. The problem is not all the umpires, first of all, know how to use the machines or what's offered to them correctly. We even saw some howlers this summer because the technology was there, and if hotspot doesn't work, then it's up to the people who provided that machine to get it right. Technology is not going to go away. You don't go backwards, you go forwards. And I think I'm right in saying that the elite panel of umpires got something like 94% of the decisions correct. And I think with DRS it's gone up to 97. So how can that be bad for the game? And I think if that's the way we're going, then if each country has to, that's when the ICC should say, look, we are the governing body, this is the way we're going. And that's when they have to get tough. But DRS is not going to go away. And I think and also, the other rule that they need to think about, which is a ridiculous rule now, with the way the game is covered, if you're the number one umpire in the world and you're English and the number two umpire in the world is Australian, why can't they umpire an England-Australian game? Ridiculous situation. We have 4 umpires rotating round. They got tired and decisions crept in. The best umpires are the best umpires. With the technology and the worldwide coverage, you've got to be a pretty stupid man if you think you can stand in the middle there and try and help your side making decisions, because they'll just get turned around because people will say, we'll review that, and then the umpire's made to look silly. So wake up, that's the one thing I'd say to the ICC, wake up to this fact now. These are the best umpires, use your best umpires, and let the machinery and also the younger umpires will adapt to the machinery and the way of using DRS a lot easier than, I'm 57, when a computer was put in my hands, I didn't know what to do with it. My 4-year-old grandson can switch it on and go flying in. They're brought up with it. I wasn't. So it's alien to me, new to them.
The other question that I want to ask you about the ICC and its approach towards the affiliate and associate nations, not the test nations, towards promoting cricket in countries like Ireland, the Netherlands, etc., the affiliate and associate nations. Do you think the ICC is doing enough, or do you think enough is being done? Not just by the ICC, but do you think that enough is being done to promote cricket around the world outside of these 10 test nations?
Yeah, and I think you could do something else. I think, take just for one example, let's use the World Cup that's coming up in Australia and New Zealand in 2015-16. If you look at that, the top 8 sides go in automatically. Then you have, in the build-up to it, you have the Netherlands, Scotland, Wales, Canada, Kenya, whoever, in their own World Cup. And then the top 2, the ones that make it to the final, make it to the World Cup, and then you have your 10 teams. But let's get the format right of the World Cup. Let's not turn it into another IPL where it just goes on, and everybody, by the time all the hype at the start, they've all gone to watch football or rugby by the end of it because it's just too long. People don't want that dragged out like that. The players don't want it dragged out like that. Television doesn't want it dragged out like that. So look at that. Those are things to look at. But I think I'm all for encouraging the second tier of international teams playing. But you've got to give them an incentive, and that would be one way of giving them an incentive. And also, why not have promotion relegation? If you do it, we do it in the cricket leagues at home, you know, Premiership or First Division, Second Division. You lose the bottom two, go into the second, the top two come up. Why can't we do that and have two international boards? And it just makes competitions. It would make sense to me. That's how sides get better. And the sides that aren't getting better and are going backwards, they go back and start again in the Second Division.
What are your views on Afghanistan's qualification?
Terrific. Absolutely fantastic. And I wish them all the very best, because I think that is such an achievement. When you look at the whole picture of what's going on in that country and what's been going on for the last so many years, I think to achieve what they've done is magnificent, and it's great for the game of cricket.
If you had to pick a world 11, a world test 11, from Sri Lanka, would you be Sant Jayasuriya or Kumar?
Blimey, you'd have to. I need an hour to sit down and do that, to do it properly. I mean, you've had some great players. I mean, top of the order, Zanath, you've had Kumar, Mahela, and that's just in this present series. Go back a little bit further, Mendes, you know, there's lots of good players around. Very difficult to pick. Ask me at the end of the walk.
As a batsman, which spinner would you have rather faced? Botham or Shane?
I would prefer Mully because it's basically two ways, and you can pick his deucer.
I think that
Warren in his peak.
Warren in his peak was
is the best wrist spinner I've ever seen, and the second best was Abdul Qadir.
Abdul Qadir.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were playing cricket, you've had your fair share of controversies. You've been up and down. But you still recognized as probably the greatest all-rounder that England has produced. Do you think that there's a lack of all-rounders in the sport at the moment? Do you think that players are becoming maybe a bit too specialised?
No, I don't think so. I think if you think of in that period when I played, there was 4 very good all-rounders playing against each other and for their countries, which made it interesting. But if you think back after that and more towards today, you haven't had that number of all-rounders. It was just a freak batch that got hatched in that period. The 4 of us all appeared at the same time. I mean, the best all-rounder in the England side now is Matt Pryor. And I think Gilchrist was an all-rounder, and Donny for me is an all-rounder. I think if you're a keeper and batsman, you're an all-rounder. So there are all-rounders out there, but no, it was a good era to play when I did, because the rivalry between myself, Keps, Imran, Richard Hadley, it was good. It was great fun.
Saying, do you think there are accusations floating because of the fixing that's happening, because of this fixing, because of doping, etc., things that are happening? There are allegations that cricket is becoming too commercialized. Can you blame commercialization of the sport for what's the flaws in this sport?
No, I don't blame it at all. I go back to what I said earlier. I blame the boards, the respective boards. If you can't keep your own backyard in order, then we'll move on, we'll get someone else.
What would you like to see individual boards doing to crack down on things like this?
Look, you can't tell me that boards have not known what's been going on in the IPL and in other matches for the last 20 years, 30 years. I do not believe they were not aware of these situations, but they chose to ignore it. And if they want to ignore it, it's going to catch up with them. And it did catch up with them. And then, of course, but I see all the board members still there. I don't see any of them getting removed because of their the inadequate way that they actually dealt with the situation.
Do you think that the ICC should, would you advocate the ICC taking action against individual boards that fail to keep their backyards in?
In an ideal world, you wouldn't have that situation if the boards did their job. And I, for one, you can clamp down, you can clamp down, you can clamp down. We're hearing about this, we know it's still going on. And the only way you're going to do it is to come down severely on the boards if they don't look after it. And then the only place that can come from is the ICC. Of course it is, because they are the ruling body. But it needs to be done. And I still think this could have been taken care of a lot quicker, a lot cleaner than it has been. But each board has to do its own job. And I don't care if it's your 2 best players and you think or you know they're involved. The team knows, the players know that they're involved. Well, I'm sorry, boys, you might be our 2 best players, but bye-bye, you're gone. Otherwise, their influence can only be negative on the rest of the team. If you've got your 2 best players and they're involved, and the younger players come into the team, you mentioned Salman Butt now, I wouldn't personally think of him as a wonderful leader and a person that would make me want to become corrupt. But if it was someone like a Dhoni or a Viv Richards or Tony Gregg and people of that, yeah, and also that presence that they had, the aura, then yeah, but it's down to you to sort yourself out, and it starts from the team. So if the players know that something's going on, they should then take it to their management, the management take it to the board, and it's dealt with. Not dragged out over months and months and months. There, right. But you've been accused of this, you're not playing until we've reviewed this and you can prove that what's going on is not right. Match fixing, we are going to investigate it, you are suspended while we investigate. And that immediately will send out a few shockwaves. And then you're suspended until we come to a conclusion. And the other thing they could have done was said, okay, to the whole players, all right, here you go. You tell us, we'll have an amnesty. You tell us what's been going on, cut it out, and we'll clean the board clean, and wipe it clean, rather, I should say, and we'll start again. And everybody comes forward that's involved, where, when, we don't care how much, where and when and who, and then you just clear the board. There'll be no more of that. Everyone knows who's involved, has been involved. You'll be watched, but you'll start with a clean sheet. And I think that's probably the only way you're going to do it now. But again, it's down to each team, each management, each board, and then the ICC all playing an active part.
Each individual needs to take responsibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you pegged this 160-mile walk which you're undertaking from Kilinochie to Senegal, you peg it as the toughest, probably one of the toughest that you're going to have to undertake. But it is not the longest that you've done. Why is it going to be tougher this time?
Well, we're going to uncharted territory. The walk, 160 miles in 8 days, is straightforward enough. But then you've got to factor in up to maybe 40 degrees of heat in certain parts of Sri Lanka. You're going to have high humidity in the 90s, and maybe up as far as 97, 98%. This is where I haven't been. And I don't know how the body's going to react. And as soon as I'm finished here with you, I'm out there. You can come in if you want. We're going to go out there, and we'll go out and do maybe 4 or 5 miles when the sun's at its hottest, just to see the reaction to the body. Don't do too much because the walk's only 48 hours away now. Whatever, it's getting close, very close, I think. So I don't want to do too much, but I want to do enough just to tick over. I've done all the hard training in the build-up. Now it's just I'm ticking over until it goes. So it's new for me, and that's why I am actually looking forward to it. I like this kind of challenge. It's new. I haven't done it. How is everything going to respond? How's the body? Am I going to come out looking at about 8 stone wringing wet? Or will the body adapt and will the muscles take over? So we'll find out. But it's uncharted. So in 8 days' time, I'll be able to tell you exactly how it was and how tough it was. I think a lot of people are reading into it that it's going to be extremely tough and it's hard. I actually did 4 or 5 days here when we did the launch with my wife, and we went out and did walking every day, and we went out at the hottest, and we were fine. But that was only up to maybe 7, 8 miles, because Colombo is such a big city. Where do you go? You get lost. So when we do the actual path, then we'll find out. But no, I'm confident I'll get there. I think my backup team are more worried about some of the other guys who are coming in to do maybe 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, and there's a few guys trying to do the whole walk. They're the ones I think that will struggle more.
Now, you're a frequent visitor to Sri Lanka for business and leisure. What is it about Sri Lanka that attracts you here?
Well, I played in the first ever test match between the two countries. I think it was 82, I think, with Keith Fletcher's side. And I liked the country then, and the way it has grown since then. Facilities, technology, roads, the infrastructure. It's on the move all the time, and that expressway, for instance, what a difference that makes. But no, I loved the country. And then 2004, when I came down after the tsunami and representing the Laureus Sports for Good Foundation, and this is one they sent me down. It's been my baby since, and I came down, saw the devastation as I was here shortly after the tsunami, and there are sites that I will never forget, horrendous sites. But we rebuilt the village. It took a while. We got the MCC helped with the cricket ground. Brian Adams helped with the swimming pool. We've got dentistry, homes, hospitals, medical care. Everything's there now. Computer centre for the youngsters, as I was saying. The young kids now straight onto the computers. It's very much state of the art. And what we want to do now is we forget that the north was hit by the tsunami as well, but we were never really aware of how badly because of the conflict that was going on. And so we're going to do the same now, just south of Jaffna, and mirror what we've achieved in the south up there. That's the objective. We're not political. We have no interest in politics. We're here to give a chance to people that would probably never get that chance, with the opportunities, the facilities, and who knows, there might be 2 or 3 international cricketers that come out of this project, as with the one in the south, in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Who knows?
Sri Lanka cricket at the moment is looking for the next tier of players to come forward with players, because once the seniors are gone, you're going to have to need to find some players. What advice would you have for budding Sri Lankan cricketers?
Play. Get out there and play. Enjoy it. I say the same thing to kids from every country. If you go out, the first thing you've got to do is enjoy the game. Enjoy it, learn how to play it, learn the rules, understand the rules, learn to play within the rules most of the time. Enjoy it. If you're enjoying it, usually the people that are watching them. That was my attitude when I went out to play. I thought, well, if I'm enjoying this, which I was, then hopefully the people who've paid good money to come and watch are enjoying it as well.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'd just like to end with a quick question. Something that I was curious about, and I'm sure that our audience are curious about as well. How exactly did you get the nickname Beefy?
Beefy? I don't know, actually. I've been known as Beefy since I was about 16. Dressing room nicknames. No, I honestly don't know the answer. You'd have to ask one of the guys at Somerset who started it all. But it's been with me. My grandchildren call me Grandad Beefy. walk down the high street, the builders up in the scaffolding, Beefy, how's it, good morning? You know, the lollipop lady seeing the kids across the road, Beefy, how are they? It's, everybody knows me as Beefy.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Ian, for speaking to News First.
Pleasure.
Unfortunately, we're short of time. All the best for Beefy's big walk.
Thank you, and hopefully, and thank you for your coverage of it.